Hello, hello, hello. This is The Father's Sphere with Chris and JD.
Padenza. I'm the Godfather.
You guys out there are probably wondering either these two are nuts or there's a catch to this mafia feel type music.
Exactly.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the family business. It's the family business.
Yes,
I treat
sir.
you like a son. Family business.
Let's do it. Not what you think it may be, though. It's not anything to do with an actual Italian mafia business. What are we talking about today, man? Like
We
family
are-
business.
So, on the father sphere, we're all about encouraging dads to be great dads.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're all about. And today we're talking a little bit, it's titled The Family Business. But it really is, we're talking today about instilling values into our kids. Really important values. And I know I was talking in our last episode a little bit about the values that my dad instilled into me. And it's stuck, you know what I mean? Kids have a tendency to veer and push the envelope, and they test their boundaries, and they always are looking around and, experimenting with things and trying to do things that are, not what their parents taught them, right? And that's kind of natural. That's kind of what kids tend to do. But they always come back to our values. They always come back to the values that we instill into them. So it's important. It's critically important to be an incredible father, to make sure that you are focused on instilling values.
It's
your kids.
if you think about it, it's like hard work at an actual local business. If you work and invest your time and everything into that local business, it will prosper in the future.
Yeah.
Same thing with your kids. If you install those morals, those ethics, those values, everything, they will carry that over to their kids.
Yeah.
And not just your kids, but their life in general.
Yeah.
And you as a father, you're going to pop your collar and say, that was me.
Yeah. And, think about it this way too. When you couple that stuff with all the other things we're going to be talking about, just encouraging your kids and loving your kids and being proud and accepting your kids and letting your kids know that you love them, all that stuff, it's like you're talking about just investing, right? I mean, we put money away and it yields interest, and then it compounds on that interest, and boom, you're a millionaire, right? Mm-hmm. If you do it all right. So instilling values into our kids, the coolest thing about doing that, and when you have a focused effort on doing it, is it blows up into, they're going to do it better than you, hopefully if everything is good, with their kids. And then that's just going to pass on your whole lineage, which is another episode. But instilling values, one of the biggest values that I talked about last episode that my dad always did was just respecting women. It was really important. And I remember, so here's a funny little story. I remember one time I went, if you've ever been in a bathroom like at a fair or something, yeah, they're disgusting. They're terrible. And all the urinals are taken up, and these guys are like peeing in the sink. And I remember, and I was like, oh, that's the first time I ever saw that as a kid. I was like, what the heck? People wash their hands in there, man. What are you doing? And so I get out to the car, and I have this friend, it was a friend's granddaughter, my parents' friend's granddaughter, with us wherever we were at. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe this. Like, there were some dudes in there totally peeing in the sink. And my mom and dad freaked out. They were just like, you don't talk to a girl. Do not talk. And my dad's like, you don't talk to a lady that way, Christopher, in his Jewish Brooklyn accent. They got on me. And because it was that serious for them. And years later, it's just like, I have 3 girls. I'm in a house full of girls, and I've had just in my life and with my friends, I've had so many women that feel like just safe around me because my dad instilled that value of you respect women. You don't try to get something out of them. You don't try to do stuff and get fresh with them, like my dad would say, right? But that was a value that he instilled in me that carried through, and it's benefiting me as a father of girls, you know. And I have high standards for their boyfriends, you know. Like, don't touch my daughter or I'll break your fingers, everyone.
Want to see my gun collection? I'm trying to set up a hall of shame where I hang all my achievements in the military, like
oh yeah,
all that stuff there. Walk them down that hall, and then hopefully the goal is for them to be like, "Oh my God, I can't. Oh, I'm gone."
I got this Amazon gift card for my birthday. Was it my birthday or Father's Day? My birthday, I think. Anyway, I wound up buying this Spartan sword. It's a really BA looking sword, man. And so, like I'm definitely gonna pull that thing out when my daughter goes on a date. You know, I'll be sharpening that when they come in. You know, yeah, cleaning the gun collection. I like the achievements of military. That's a cool one.
It's something that hopefully my daughter, when she grows up, she sees it as a form of respect, not as feared.
Right.
But once again, that comes down to what values we put in, or we install. Let's treat our kids as computers here. What apps are we going to install into our kids for them to kind of like relate as they grow up?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. A lot of people may confuse values with just wrongful of type of installing fear into somebody, into a child. You know, I mean, fear like I'm going to smack you. Fear like, you know, if you don't do this, you're going to wound up like this person, or will wound up like this type of people. We need to install the values in a way where it reflects them as a human being. When people meet them, they're like, I bet you his or her parents are awesome.
Yeah.
And they said, that's just a good human being, though. Like, there's something I want to be, somebody I want to be around, to hang around with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, family values, family business. Give me one example, if you could. Since the reason why I'm asking you this is because all three of your girls are grown.
Yeah.
The youngest one's what, like,
she's
high school?
Going to be 16 in December.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're at an age where they can think for themselves. They're young adults to adults.
Yeah.
What values can you tell me that you installed into your daughters that you can see the fruits of it right now?
Well, here's the deal, man. I make no bones about my faith. The two values that are passed down from my mom and dad. Well, I should say they focused on one value, but I added one. And these are straight like scriptural values, right? But I think if you do these two things in life, and my experience has been that if you do these two things in life and you work on them, you got good things coming in life. So, one is my parents would always say, "What's the most important thing in the world?" And the response was to love God, right? Mm-hmm. Number one. And I added, because this was a Jesus thing. He said the two greatest commandments are love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. So I always taught my kids, I'd drop them off at school and I'd say, hey, what's the two most important things in the world? And it was to love God and to love people. And my kids would come home sometimes, and that was kind of the really foundational. And you know what I'm sad about? I don't get to take them to school because now they're driving to school and one's in college, right? But once in a while, I'll throw it out to them. Hey, what's the two most important things in the world? And they'll tell me, right? Because they've been trained. But what was cool is there were some times that one of my kids would come home and be really mad at somebody, and they would just be like, oh, this person, I wish they would just never come back and all this stuff. And I'd respond by saying, hey, so how could we do number 2 with this person? Like the second most important thing in the world with this person, what could we do? And I'd challenge them. And sometimes they'd be like, well, I guess, and they'd give me standard answers, right? And I said, well, you could. That might be 2 steps down the road, but maybe right now we could either pray for them or maybe just think about what's going on in their world that, maybe they're hurting over something and they're just taking it out on other people. Because I think in a lot of ways, hurting people tend to hurt other people.
Mm-hmm. Chain reaction.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't know how to deal with it. They're hurt and they just are reacting, and that's it, right? And so with my girls, those were always the 2 most important things, because I feel like foundationally, if my spirit is right and my heart is right, it makes it easier to love people. Not easier, there's tough people to love out there, but I think those were always the 2 that I instilled in my kids, and always was like, hey, love on people. And I should probably add a third, because I think a lot of times, I think it's important to love yourself too. Self-esteem is a huge part of being a well-rounded person, and it's important to like yourself and laugh at yourself and say, hey, I can do this. That's critically important. I think I have kind of, when I was young, I was always just like, yeah, I like myself. I'd hang out with myself, and I think having that attitude is important. I think that's mellowed in me, which I'm a little sad about that. I think I still like myself, but I'd like to hang out with myself more. You know what I mean? Or at least have that personality like, yeah, I want to hang out with that guy.
I see you at the vintage just drinking with yourself. Hey,
yeah.
Chris, how you doing? Good,
yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, kind of sitting, boom, boom, kind of doing the turn and look and talk.
That's one great example. It's basically instilling values into your kids is that you have to be an example, right?
Yep.
If you love yourself, I'm not saying this is going to be 100% accurate, but if you love yourself, your kids should follow and love themselves. But things happen along the way.
Yeah.
Especially today's age, is really hard to put any type of value into anybody.
Yeah.
Whether it be your child or not, because we're so influenced easily, especially with everything that's going on with the internet and social media.
Yeah.
So it's harder for you.
Yeah.
Because I think your values would be super more 100,000% more powerful back in like the 20s and 30s.
Right. Probably. But I still hold out hope for it. I'm kind of old school that way. Like, I think, I don't talk on the phone all that much because I'd rather sit face to face with somebody and talk. Like there's people I know, they'll talk and they'll go for hours on the phone. Like my mom's like that, right? She'll call me. She could talk for hours. And I'm like, you know what? My mom's 4 hours away. It's like, I'd rather just drive up, spend 24 hours with you and come back. Like,
yeah,
that's just, I like the face-to-face connection. I'm very much a people person. I'm very relational. I'd say that's another thing that I hope that my kids pick up from me. My kids have this saying, they go, I'm peopled out. I can't deal with people, right? And I think, I'm trying to think if anyone would be extroverted. I mean, I'm probably like an ambivert. Like there's sometimes I'm really extroverted and man, I draw excitement off people and being somewhere and being with a lot of people. And then there's some times where it's like, I just need to chill out and be alone with my family. And being alone too, right? Kind of recharge the batteries. But with my kids, I want to instill in them that people, and goes along with the 2 most important things in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But the people are really important. I mean, I think friends, I have so many awesome friends in my life and so many good people in my life. It's made life richer. And so like when I hear people go, I'm peopled out, I'm like, well, don't stay that way for too long.
People, they're all around.
Yeah,
So
and
think of
I'm
it.
not to say there's not a lot of difficult people out there,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the big deal. I was thinking. I had a conversation with my mom. So, instilling good in your kids and being focused on instilling the good,
Mm-hmm.
we don't do it enough. Because what happens is if you don't get intentional and really think about what you want, what values you want your kids to have, and uh, personal values that you have that you want to pass on to your kids, if you don't think about that and make it a point to do it, you're going to inadvertently instill things that you probably don't want your kids to have. So I'll give you an example. So my mom and dad, I think, and I remember talking with my mom about this. I said, you and dad always kind of had a lot of fear of doing something or messing up or, bothering people or this and that. And I was like, I don't like that I've kind of picked that up as I've grown up. And so, like, that's something I now have to kind of focus on and go, you know what? If I want to do a podcast, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm not going to be afraid if nobody listens to it, right? It's just something I want to do with my friend JD, and I'm not going to be afraid about if it's a success or failure or anything, right?
Yep.
But like my mom, it was just like, people aren't going to, they want, they're not going to be interested in, listening to that or, why would they want to do that,
Yeah.
So the being intentional about what you instill into your kids, you got to think about it. You got to do it because, they're going to pick up your bad habits regardless.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't think about it, you're going to wind up instilling stuff that isn't going to help your kids out,
Oh, I see it every day.
Yeah.
Especially with my 6-year-old.
Yeah, they're like a sponge, man. And they're like a mirror.
Crazy. Yeah.
They just reflect it.
And have you ever, since we're strongly on the topic of values, like, have you noticed, once again, I'm picking on you because you have grown children already. I'm just tip of the iceberg. I'm just getting started. Have you ever experienced where, like, you try so hard to implement or to instill values into your kids, but then does it seem like sometimes just the bad stuff is just rubbing off? Like, has happened to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, well, like I said, kids are sponges. And why do they pick up all the crappy stuff you do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my kids, so I never was a big cusser,
Mm-hmm.
I never cussed a whole lot. But when I hear my kids do it, I'm just like, I want to yell at them. But there was that, there's that Gandhi example where a woman takes her kid to Gandhi and says, hey, is it Gandhi? Yeah. Gandhi. And she says, my kid eats too much sugar, tell him to stop eating sugar. And he goes, okay, go away and come back in 2 weeks. And so they come back in 2 weeks and he goes, hey, stop eating sugar. And she goes, well, why do we have to wait 2 weeks? He said, well, because I was eating sugar and I had to stop eating sugar so that I wasn't a hypocrite. Tell this kid, right? and so, yeah, I mean, kids just pick up that stuff. They reflect it. And when I sit there and I want to correct them or say, oh, come on, don't talk like that, I think, well, how's my mouth been lately? Oh. And, in a reversal way, it's gotten me to watch my mouth more,
Mm-hmm.
and try to be better about it. So I guess it's a two-way street, if you're willing to learn from your kids.
I do know that by having kids, I always try to become a better person, and not in like the aspect that like I don't want to rob a bank or anything. In the aspect of like I try not to curse and use profanity, curse. I don't use not cuss. There you go. I try to not use profan in front of my kids. I try not to be, any type of like negative action.
Right.
And, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a saint. I'm also a city guy. I come from the East Coast, New Jersey, New York City, Puerto Rico. So it's like I have the city values, and it may not be all good, but I have that toughness, and like every now and then, a word will slip.
Yeah.
And that's my goal, is not to cuss as much. My wife, unfortunately, I love her to death, but that slip. Not, slipping is not the right word to use. She likes to let it stream. And I'm not, that doesn't devalue her though.
She's one of those creative cussers. She
Yeah.
comes up with all sorts of
Yeah,
creative ways to.
Oh, creatively is incredible. How she's made up words. I think it's. But the thing is that it doesn't define her as a
Yeah.
woman. I love her to death, and she's an incredible woman. And I know that when my daughter grows up and she happens to be like me or her, and I just want to teach my daughter. Just if you want to use profanity, go right ahead.
Right.
But be a good person.
You know,
make it a heart. Have heart.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely a minor. If you got someone who is holding high values and they got a mouth like a sailor, all right, I can deal with that. But if you're helping people and you're loving people and loving God, well, all right.
I think that's more important for me.
We can work on it on the other stuff.
Obviously, it's like you're eat your cake and eat it too. Whatever the saying goes. Like if I would want her to have a good vocabulary and have good morals and all that. So it's like if I want it all, yeah, I do. I want my daughter to be nearly perfect if possible. But at the same time, in the line of work that I work in right now, we really can't expect too much from our kids because have seen that backlash or backfire on us parents. For example, a lot of fathers and mothers, they expect so much out of their kids that they get tired of it,
right?
And they just run away or they lash out, and that's something that I've seen with my daughter.
Yeah, and
when I see that she's she's about to have a meltdown because we're trying to say, don't do this, don't do that, you got to eat, you got to do this. She's like, all right,
yeah.
What do you want to do? And you gotta have to back off a little bit. It's like, what does Catalina want to do? Marshmallows? Let's eat marshmallows.
Yeah.
So like we have to give them their space too. And
right.
Whether it be 6 years old or 16, it doesn't matter. We as human beings, we when you're at work, you want sometimes your boss to back up.
Yeah.
Look, I am overloading on work here. Chill out. So that's the same thing with kids. And I personally feel like I don't have the experience that you do, but I do know that as parents we evolve with the times and we also we become parents if we want to.
Yeah.
I'm not an experienced father, so I'm learning with my daughters, and I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
And I learn from you, like whenever, like I think this is for me, in my personal opinion, a good experience as a young father myself. Well, not that young, 36.
Well, and that's the thing with instilling into your kids. It really is you modeling it, right? It's not going, hey kids, I want to instill this in you, so I'm going to just keep telling you what you need to be doing, right?
Trying to tell me it's not like the App Store?
Yeah, it's not. It's not literally like going and hitting your fingerprint and boom, you're instilling it, right? Putting it on their forehead, and they download the app. Now it is you showing it. So one thing that, for example, one thing that I think is really lost today with people in general, is like following through on your commitments, right? I'm terrible at time management. Probably, I'm probably the worst, in the sense that, I think, oh yeah, so today, Saturday, we got this going on, and that's only going to go till noon, so I can go do stuff with you in the afternoon, and then at night I can go do stuff over here, right? Like, like my sense of, how long something's going to take and do. And it drives my wife crazy. She's just like, you run around like a chicken with your head cut off because you think you can do all this stuff.
My wife right now is probably doing the same thing. She's
right?
Like, oh my God, you said it's going to be an hour in the podcast.
Right, exactly. So it's one of these deals where, I sit there and I overbook myself. But in spite of that, I may be late, but I follow through on my commitment. If I make a commitment to you, Jay, I'm going to be here. And something may come up where it pushes me back, but I'm like, dude, I'm going to be there because I said I was going to be there. And there's so many people that are just like, oh, I just got to cancel. It's not your fault that I overbooked my day, right? I got to make it work because I made a commitment to you. And, that's one thing that, in spite of what, and I think my middle girl, Lauren, has this, the bad sense of timing. But, if you commit to somebody, like I want my kids to when I commit to you, I'd rather have them say no 100 times, but the one time they say yes, man, come hell or high water, they're going to be there.
Yep.
Right. So that's another thing I want to instill. So in spite of my lack of understanding of my timeline in my day and things going on, I want my kids to overall go, my dad was always there. Like if he said he was going to be there, he'd be there. And it had to be a really bad extenuating circumstance that he couldn't be there,
Oh, definitely.
And so instilling values into your kids has to be values that you model. You can't talk it into kids. You can't force it in. You can't punish it in. You can't brainwash them in. It comes from the heart, your heart, and they watch it and they see it and you model it. And they go, yeah, that's what I want. I like that about my dad. I want to be that way I want to be like my dad in that way. That's how my dad was. I mean, my dad, I said in the last podcast, my dad always he was a workaholic. He worked a lot. He tried to provide for us as much as he can. And we didn't get along when we did stuff like repaired stuff or did an activity together. But, I did see how my dad treated others and they helped. My parents were part of a benevolence program in their church. And so they would always help people and they'd go get furniture for people. And if someone had a need, they would bank up, they would work through the church and say, hey, this person's got a need. Does anyone have a couch? And we'd go get a couch and they'd bring me along with, and I'd see that. So, modeling what you want to instill for your kids, that's the only way to do it.
It's pretty much like everything in life. I've always wondered how my child, like I said, I can speak for myself when it comes to this. Maybe you've been through this phase. I've always wondered where does my daughter get certain things that she says or does, and modeling is basically a replication. When she watches YouTube, and she gets certain traits, and if I'm not teaching her those traits, she's getting it from YouTube. And I've always wondered, how come she knows this? How come? She asked me the other day, "Hey, Dad, what does it mean to be homeless? What's a homeless girl, a homeless boy?" And I'm like, we never talked about that.
Right.
That's another step in life for us
Right.
to say, look, appreciate what you got. You got a home, and there's a lot of homeless people out there. But I found out that she learned it through a YouTube kids page that was talking about homeless people. And it's like, she's getting educated by external modeling sources.
Right.
If she's not getting it from you or from me or my wife or somebody else that's related to us, she's getting it from external. So that's probably something where if it's harder nowadays to do this.
Right.
Because if you're not there 24/7 to teach your kids a certain thing, a certain way to doing things, then she's learning it somewhere else, or
right.
They are learning it somewhere else. So I completely understand what you mean by modeling. It's a replication in their minds.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Well, and that goes back to what I talked about being intentional. Like if you're not intentional about what you want to instill into your kids, something else is gonna fill that space, right? So like you're talking about, and you can't avoid it. It's gonna happen. But I think that's where being engaged with your kids, we talked about that last podcast, being engaged with your kids and talking to them about the subject of what they want to talk about, and just being open and asking them questions, them asking you, and you just having an honest dialogue about it. There's, you talked about kids kind of getting their own personalities, when they grow up. My kids are, 20, 17, and 16 almost. And, they learn some stuff that and they talk with me, and my middle girl and I, it's funny because we are a lot alike, and it's funny how there's just a lot of topics that she kind of sees opposite of me. And so we'll go at it, and it's totally fun for us to kind of engage and debate about stuff. But like the rest of my family clears out of the room. like they feel like we're fighting down. And we're like, we're not fighting. Like, we're just passionate.
Go down.
That's right. And so it's one of these deals where your kids, they're going to diverge, right? Your belief system, the way you see the world, the way that you do things, they're going to, like I said before, push the envelope. They're going to try to go out and test their boundaries. It's natural. We all did it. We all kind of looked outside of what we grew up with, and we tried the other side of the fence kind of thing. But the values that we instill into our kids, the modeling that we do, they come back around to it because they see how it affected their lives indirectly, your life directly. And I think that is so critical to have that anchor, right? They may let the chain out, but they'll always pull themselves back into it.
They always come back to the family business.
The family business, Bedenza. This one is one that I've been trying to get better at. You kind of get caught up in other things and start veering away from it. Stephen Covey had a time management type class, and he talked about, this was so long ago. There is urgent, not important, and then there's not urgent, very important, and then there's these quadrants. I'm not going to remember the other ones. Anyway, your family stuff is of the utmost importance, but it's always kind of a non-urgent. It's in that quadrant.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like one of these deals where it's like, if you're not disciplined and doing it, it just falls by the wayside, but it's critically important for your kids.
It reminds me of a book I read called The Four Arrangements. Ever heard of it?
No.
It's a four something. It's four arrangements. It's basically, it's four sections of life.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies. I think we at my work, it was DISC, DISC, and they had different things for it, but just personality typing essentially. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that is critically important to be a dad in the father sphere zone, and working towards that, and because like I said, if we don't make it intentional and instill values into our kids, they're going to pick it up elsewhere.
Yeah.
Kids are sponges.
Oh, we don't want that.
No.
You don't want that nasty sponge goo going on.
Exactly. They got to soak up the good stuff. Yeah. And that's what dads give. Dads and moms, they give the good stuff. So it's important, dads, and those dads listening in, if you've got kids, think about 3 things that you want, values that you're like, man, I want my kids to have those values. And then I would turn and reflect on yourself and say, how am I emulating? How am I modeling those values? And the first step is really just to go, all right, I'm going to do better. And here's the practical ways that I'm going to do this value better and that value better. And your kids will notice the difference. If you're not doing it right now, they'll notice, Dad, why are you doing this stuff? And you have the opportunity to say, hey, I feel like these values are important, and I want to model these for you. I mean, be honest. Just say, I want to model them for you. I want you guys to do this too when you grow up, because, whether it be helping at a homeless shelter or, just going over and doing something nice for somebody or whatever the value may be. I think that's something that is very important to do.
Oh yeah, because like I said, as human beings, what are we here?
Yeah.
If we're going to be roaming this earth, just being complete malicious, bad people, I don't want to use other words. Then what's the point? We have to do good. We have to, and this is not just about kids. I know it's called the father sphere, but like as friends, like I get influenced by people around me, including yourself. Like I'm influenced every single day, and just because I'm 36 years old doesn't mean those values are not being implanted inside my soul. Like
Right.
it's there, and I learn stuff every single day from you, from Pastor Dennis, my own wife, my mother still,
Yeah.
she's still here with me. So this is a never ending cycle.
Yeah. And there is, we're not professionals, right? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not anything. I'm a pretty good relational kind of guy, right? I build good relationships, but, there is value in just talking and having these conversations with other dads, right? And that's really the essence of the father sphere, is to just get you thinking about these things and talking about it. And I mean, we want to hear from our listeners too on what they want to talk about, because I think that's of utmost importance.
Yep.
Like if there's something that you guys want to talk about, hit us up on Facebook, shoot us an email, whatever, reach out to us and let us know, hey, I'm going through this thing right now with my kids. What do I do with this? We have a whole plethora of resources, a lot of great people that we're going to have on the show too.
Oh, yeah.
And, if we don't have the answer, and we may go into it not having the answer, but just being able to talk about it and root out things, it's going to be huge. It's going to be great. It's going to help people out in a big way. Dads specifically.
Surely thing, and for you, for those of you wherever you're listening, if you're watching us right now, if you're listening, wherever it may be, whatever platform it is, anywhere you go, Facebook, Instagram, it's gonna be Father Sphere. So look us up. We Chris here made sure we got all the names on lock. So if you do have any questions, whatever platform you listen, just drop us a message. Question. If you want to call in, we're gonna have that feature coming in real soon where we're gonna go live, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll go live. And if you're listening in and you want to call in, we're gonna have a line open for callers, and we'll announce when the lines are open, and you can call, or you can even text us in with a question, and we'll live on the podcast. We'll answer your question for you, or have you on the show.
Yeah.
So that being said, family business.
Family business.
Capiche? I can't do the Italian. I suck. Thank you for listening, Chris. As always, you've been awesome. Thank you all for listening. This is the Father Sphere. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.